Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. Now today's first story comes from Hooty Hoot 110. And before we do get into the story, some trigger warnings for you: child abandonment, emotional abuse, past trauma, death of a loved one. So if you do want to skip the story, please feel free to do so. Timestamps are always down in the description and along the timeline below. Thank you. And it's titled, Am I the Arsehole Here? For using information against my mother in court that I know will destroy her emotionally and mentally. I, 34 female, am involved in a very dramatic court case with my narcissistic mother and stepfather. First, a little backstory. When my sister was 1 and I was 3, my mother initially had custody. However, she had gone missing for 4 days, but leaving my sister and I in the home alone. Investigations were done and we were raised by our father. There was a reunification plan. However, my mother did not follow any of it and her parental rights were terminated. No one had ever talked negatively about my mother growing up or told me what happened. So when I was 20, I found my mum and decided to develop a relationship with her. Big mistake. After reuniting with my mother, I discovered quite a bit of information that I previously had not known. She is a narcissist, diagnosed formally, specifically vulnerable narcissist. My stepfather has BPD, diagnosed formally. This past decade has been torture, faked cancer. I was made to shave her hair. Had to pay them to watch my 2 children. Constant arguments, just too much to name. In 2022, my parents decided to move 15 hours away for a get-rich-quick scheme involving flipping homes. I decided to stay in our hometown because my youngest child's father died, and I wanted to stay close to his family. Plus, I was already in a year-long relationship. My mother was enraged. After she had already left, she tried everything to get me to move up with them. She asked me how much money to break up with my boyfriend, got me fired from a job, wrote posts online about how mean I am, text my oldest about me, sent me hundreds of messages each month, etc. This had been going on continuously for about a year. Earlier this year, I was served paperwork. My mother and stepfather are suing me for grandparents' rights. However, no court date was ever sent. My oldest child goes to her father every break, and when she came back from summer break with him, she was acting very different. I found out that my mother and my child's father have been in close contact for about a year and a half. Had my daughter speak with my mother, see my mother, and recorded videos of her that my child did not know about. I have sole legal and physical custody. So, needless to say, a huge argument happened and I am now restricting any visitation. As a result of this incident, my mother and stepfather set a court date for a month from now. So, here's why I ask if I am the arsehole. For court, I plan on using text messages where my mother said my stepfather is a danger to children. Text messages from my daughter's father stating my mother is psychotic and he would never give our child access to her. And my mother's court records. My mother has over 140 plus charges on her record in 5 different states. My stepfather knows none of it. I'm also using the fact that her parental rights to me were terminated, so legally she has no rights to my children. My concern is that knowing she's a narcissist, when I use these documents in court, it will humiliate her and probably turn my stepfather against her. I do worry it's going to trigger a horrible reaction from my mother, possibly the worst. I wish my mother no harm. I just want to be left alone and protect my children. I've been in no contact this whole time, hoping it would stop, but it hasn't. I'm feeling so conflicted. Absolutely not the arsehole in this situation at all to me. You're protecting your children. That's what matters here. And you're not using information against her. You're basically presenting the truth about who she is and why she shouldn't have access to your children. And the fact that the truth happens to be really shit for her is not your problem or responsibility, quite frankly. As said at the start, your only obligation here is to protect your children from someone who's proven herself dangerous and manipulative. And she created this situation every step of the way. She chose to sue for grandparents' rights despite her history, which she clearly knows. So, quite simply, protect your children. Opie responded to someone who said that they should steer clear of her mother, get a restraining order, and other legal action if possible. Opie says, I'm glad you were cleared, gives me hope I can get through this too. I'm staying no contact and have no intentions in ever engaging again. Which is why I also told my oldest child's father he will not see her until further notice because he will let my mother around my child. If I can get a restraining order, I will. Just trying to get her out of my children and I's life, but with limited fallout. Looks like I can't avoid that, unfortunately. Commenter says, this is your child. I don't give two craps about your mum or her feelings. Also warn your lawyer she will lie her ass off and probably already has in the deposition. I might have missed if your dad is still in your life, and if yes, he might have some skeleton to help you. You don't want some left-wing judge saying she made one mistake, I'm giving her visitation. You want to show how horrible she is, that she will give you a restraining order so she can't contact you or your child and limit any contact with the father of your child. If he didn't know your mum was nuts, then maybe let him start off slow again. Opie says, I already warned my lawyer. I asked my dad if he knew anything and it wasn't too much more than I already knew. So I hired a private investigator and that's how I found out a lot of the charges. Unfortunately, my child's father knew everything about my mother already and let it happen anyways. I have evidence that my mother paid my child's father in order to see my child. It's a whole mess. Commenter says, I'm wondering why you remained in contact with your mother once you discovered her issues. Opie says, I often ask myself the same question. I've never dealt with anyone like her before, and I never lived with her, so I didn't experience a lot of this wrath until I defied her wishes. I wasn't raised around her family, so I didn't know anyone else's experience. I also didn't know a lot of the criminal stuff until I hired a private investigator. The mental illness stuff should have scared me more, but at the time it didn't. Now that I do know everything, I can never let my kids near them again. Another commenter says to the OP, I'm curious why you would even care what effects this would have on her. You intend to present evidence-based facts that are entirely pertinent to a legal proceeding she started, involving the care and safety of your minor child. At no point should you be considering how that information reflects on her relationships with anyone else in her life, because that is not relevant here. OP says, I didn't specify in my post, but I have two half-siblings from my mother that are being put in the middle of this as well. So part of me is concerned that my mother will destroy my relationships with my half-siblings, who I am close to. My mother is the type of person who would attempt suicide and write a note saying that I made her do it. But I do not want my mother in my life. I do want my half-siblings. But I guess I just need to put that concern aside and maintain focus on my kids. Opie explains about her state and the grandparents' rights, and Opie says, my state is a little different. They only have to prove that they've had contact with my children in the last 3 years. So the time is almost up, which is why the case. My number and my kids' numbers were already changed at the start of this. Deactivated all social media profiles that identified my name. I got a job that is heavily secured and needs clearance to get in. I moved to a different city, 30 minutes from where I lived. I honestly did everything I could. My child's father was the problem, but I had no idea he was going behind my back and keeping contact. So 4.5 months after that post, OP updated. They said, I finally have an update on my situation since I last posted about 5 months ago. Court was postponed twice by my mother for reasons I don't know. Then it was postponed for a third time due to accusations that I was an unfit mother and my daughter had suicidal ideations. My mother asked the judge to appoint a guardian ad litem to make sure the children were safe. Court was rescheduled to March 2025. The past 5 months I've been doing nothing but researching my mother. I found she has a total of 19 active warrants, including 3 probation violations. I turned everything over to my lawyer in hopes something would work. 2 days after discovery was turned over to my mother's lawyers, my lawyer called to let me know she officially dropped the case. My children and I met with a guardian ad litem. They told the judge they see no issues whatsoever. After over a year of fighting this, it's finally over. It's been such a tough battle, but I'm so happy my kids are safe and will never have to go through what I have. Thank you to everyone who wrote me personally and have commented such positive things. You all have no idea how much it helped me, especially when I was having such an internal struggle. My kids are doing better than ever and I'm grateful we pushed through. More info. To answer some questions, I've already moved several states away, changed my contact information, and have been no contact for 3.5 years. I'm currently working on getting a restraining order, but I've been advised by my lawyer that I may not be granted one due to lack of proof. That's frustrating, but I'm still trying anyways. My daughter and I still have had no contact with her father, and other than a very strange Darth Vader text, we haven't heard from him. He's also a couple of states away from us. I also have my daughter in therapy, so I'm hoping she learns how to have better boundaries than I did. I'm not going to call the different areas about her warrants, yet. My thinking is that she won't make any big moves against me as long as they are active and I know about them, something I can hold over her head, just in case she tries something again. I know it's probably not over, but this is a huge win. Someone says to OP, "What an incredible update. Your strength in fighting for your kids is truly inspiring. I'm relieved to hear the Guardian ad litem found no issues. What kept you motivated through this journey?" OP says, "Thank you. What kept me going was my kids and wanting to break the cycle of toxicity for them. They deserve the world. Hopefully they will have better boundaries and not find themselves in a similar situation." Someone says, "How did OP's mother acquire that many warrants?" OP says she has 30 plus aliases and has 200 plus charges in 8 different states, all financial related crimes, identity theft, robbery, fraud, etc. She's a con artist. The commenter says, "Please do not ever have contact with your mum and stepdad again. Also, that ex seems to be a jerk too. If your mum starts harassing you, just make sure to document, video, record, and file a restraining order against her and include your kids. That would be best." Commenter says, "Contact all the venues for which she has warrants and tell them where she is, / how they can find her. Let them take care of it from there." And many of the comments after this one just saying she needs to be reported to all these places that she has warrants, and like the commenter said, and let them know where she is and let them deal with her. But holy moly. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Let's move on to another story. Now, our next story comes from Routine Status 1492, and it says, "Am I the arsehole because I don't want to spend time with my half-sister and niece? Random account because my brother uses Reddit too. Last year, my dad found out that he had another kid, Mia, 30 female, and a granddaughter, Zoe, 7. Before this, it was me, 17 male, my brother, 20 male, and our parents, 55 male and 52 female. Apparently, he just had a fling with Mia's mum when he was in college, who ghosted him and never told him about being pregnant. Since finding out, it's all my dad talks about. He and Mia texted and called for a couple of months, then she let him meet Zoe over Zoom, and then last summer, they came to visit us. We live in a big city and they live a couple of states over. My brother was at college, but he even drove back for a weekend to meet them too. Everyone was so excited, except me. Like no one acknowledged how weird the whole thing is. Mia is nice, I guess, but she kept saying how she's so excited to have a family for her and Zoe. I guess her mum's not in the picture. My parents wanted to show them around our city, so anytime I didn't have school or practice, I was being dragged around doing things for tourists and kids. And that was the thing that got on my nerves the most about that trip. Mia's kid, Zoe. She was so excited to have a nan and pap and kept calling me Uncle OP. They even came to one of my soccer games that week and she ran up after, in front of my friends, to hug me and tell me that she wanted to play soccer now too because her uncle is on the best team. When they visited over the winter break, it was a lot of the same stuff. My parents got them a ton of presents and Zoe kept asking me questions and asking to play games with her. I also found out that my dad is sending money each month. Since Mia's job doesn't pay the best, I try confiding in my brother about it. But he seems totally fine and says it's making our parents really happy to have more family. Anyway, my dad just told me they're coming up again in a couple of weeks and I snapped. I admit that I raised my voice a bit and asked why he cares so much about people he met less than a year ago. Everyone keeps saying Mia and Zoe are family, but they didn't grow up with us and I literally can't see them as actual family. They also said she's probably just using him for the money, which I know was probably a dick move, but he said he's the one that insisted sending money, and he feels guilty for not being there in her life. But it still feels so weird, so I told him I'm not going to do anything with them while they're here. Now he's saying that if I can't be a team player in the family, he'll have to reconsider taking me on our family vacation this year, which I guess they're also going on. My mum's on his side, saying Mia had a hard life, so it's natural she's excited to have a family, and that she loves having more girls in the house every once in a while. My friends are the only ones on my side, They said they'd find it weird if random people just showed up one day to be in their family. The top commenters on this one said, the first one said, "You're the arsehole. I understand this can be a hard adjustment. You're not the baby anymore, and that can seem jarring as a kid in the picture when you're used to being the youngest. But here's the thing, you're still acting more like the baby than the actual 7-year-old. Like it or not, they are family. Maybe not your family if you don't consider them as such, but they're your dad's family, your mum's family, your brother's family, and by proxy, you're involved. They have done nothing wrong except act like a family. Your parents and brother have done nothing wrong by welcoming them as family. Saying Mia is using her father for money is an arsehole move and you owe them an apology. You need to self-reflect and realize why this is pressing you so bad. Talk with your parents, the school counselor, ask for therapy, anything to figure this out. Again, having conflicting emotions over this is valid, but the way you're acting is not. Identify the problem and note, the problem isn't Mia. It isn't Zoe. It's within you. Commenter says you're the arsehole and quote saying, and asks why he cares so much about people he met less than a year ago, and then says, it's his kid and grandkid. Of course he fucking cares. Quotes again saying, I also said he's probably just using him for money, and then says, no need to lash out because you're having trouble with this. There's other ways to express yourself. And then quotes again saying, they said they'd find it weird if random people, and then says, well, they're not random. They're his kid and grandkid, but I guess this is how a 17-year-old would see it. I'm sure this is a big adjustment for you, but you're 17 and playing the petulant kid ain't going to work. You can spend your time being salty and nasty about this and ostracize your dad in the process, or you can try and move on with the family and get to know these relatives and maybe have fun. Next commenter says, I'm not going to call you an arsehole. You're 17 and having trouble dealing with this new change. You can't take it out on others though, especially not letting Mia and the kid know about any of this. Simply ask your dad to take this slow and not force you to be around them. That ain't magically going to make you like them. Sure, this isn't about you, but you're also the one dealing with this change, so it's not fair to ask you to just suck it up. Another commenter says, you said that since he found out, Mia and Zoe are all he talks about. It's been a year. Is that still true, or was it only true for a couple of months where he was reeling from the life-altering news that he had a kid he's never met? If it's still true, then I give you a bit of a pass. No one is great at communication at your age, and that's if you really examine which parts of this situation really bother you. Assuming they are all he talks about, he dropped his interest in your life, thinks they are perfect and you're not, acting like a better dad for her than for you. What is it that stabs your brain? If that's not true, you need to examine yourself anyway. All those same questions, but I give you less of a pass if your dad found his footing and is back to normal. Interested in your life, paying attention to your decisions, giving advice for your future, showing up for your game, showing up for you outside of general family time. Is it just that you literally don't know them, but everyone is acting like they do? Is it just that it takes you time to warm up to people and no one is respecting that? What is it really? Threatening to leave your family vacation is a dick move, so I guess you come by that honestly. Even more so if he actually does it. You'll need to have multiple conversations about the situation, probably with a therapist, because as I said above, it's going to be hard for you to really articulate how and why you feel like you do. If he doesn't listen to you or continues to dismiss how you feel, then he's the arse. That doesn't mean that I think he's wrong for accepting his daughter and granddaughter with an open heart. Your mum and brother aren't wrong for not finding the situation weird. They're allowed to feel how they feel. You don't get to dictate that any more than they do for you. So sometime after this, OP comes in with the update, and they say, thanks to everyone who gave me actual advice, rather than just calling me a spoiled arsehole about the situation with no further comment. I was actually able to think through my emotions and formulate a plan forward. I sat down with my parents on Sunday, and we had a productive conversation. I apologized for snapping last week and told them that I was just having a difficult time with the amount of changes over the year, and it had built up. Through reading your comments, I realized that these feelings were probably coming from the fact that I am, as many of you guessed, the youngest on both sides of the family. There had always been a lot of emphasis on that, and with it being my senior year, I kind of expected a bit more of the spotlight that I'm getting. I also think that my brother being away at school put most of the expectations on me to be a good son, brother, uncle and host. I was feeling a little resentment that he was able to escape back to his campus while I was stuck at home. I was pinning those feelings on Mia and Zoe, which I recognize isn't fair. My parents also apologized for not checking in with me more often about how I was feeling. I asked if I could opt out of some of the activities when Mia and Zoe visit, so I could still enjoy my spring break with friends. In compromise, I would make more of an effort to engage with them in general, like maybe playing soccer with Zoe. Ultimately, I've realized that my sister and niece aren't going anywhere, and I have to sort my feelings out about that. I do think me going to college out of state in a couple of months will give me my own space, but for now, I try to make more of an effort to integrate them into my life. And the top comments on that one said, nicely done. Seriously, good job. You're a good soul, kid. Don't know why I thought of Indiana Jones when I heard that. Commenter 2 says, OP handled the situation much better than most of the adults. Next commenter says, you seem like a really sweet kid that just needed some guidance in re-regulating. The amount of self-reflection you've done is admirable. Proud of you, stranger. And the last commenter said, you're doing amazing. I know it's hard, but you're doing great. Yes, your first response to them wasn't the greatest, but what matters most is that you are learning, even though it may seem easy for them. Sometimes it's also hard because you see the life you missed out on. Just keep trying and you'll succeed. And if I'm being totally honest, I really felt for OP after that first part of the post, especially after some of the comments. You know, I did get where the comments were coming from, all the arseholes in it, but it was a huge change for OP, isn't it? And I was like, didn't the parents talk to OP about this and how it's affecting him in some kind of way? Maybe they did and OP just didn't mention it, but that kind of struck me and I was like, you know, that was not really fair on OP at the same time. And casting myself back to being a 17-year-old, you know, you're trying to deal with school, and for me at that particular point, I'm not sure if it's the same with OP, but I'm assuming somewhere that you got exams to deal with. There's all sorts of different things, and just slowly transitioning to an adult at the same time, it's bloody difficult, man. So I totally understand why OP was out of sorts about it, but their update was really, really nice, I thought, to take that self-reflection and receiving that verdict that they did and just take a step back and really think about it. So fucking good on OP in this situation, absolutely. But what do you guys make of this one? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the stories, your love, your support, and your bloody cheeky time too. Thank you so, so much, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, and much love. You cheeky so-and-so.